Good evening. This is a public meeting of the Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals for April 28, 2014. Before we start the agenda, I'd like to request that if you have any electronic devices, you please turn them off while the proceedings are going on. Next order of business will be, if you plan on addressing the board, if you would please sign your name and address at the podium before addressing us. First order of business is under continuances. This is ZB 2014-4. Petitions of variance for dimensional requirements. The applicant is Mohammed Jatai of 173 Westford Street. Petition. The petitioner seeks a variance to construct a new single-family dwelling without meeting dimensional requirements. Pursuant to Section 6.3 and Article 12, Table of Uses of the zoning ordinance. Good evening, sir.
Gentlemen.
Good to see you again. So if you want to let us know what's transpired since the last meeting.
Yes, we modified the plans to your likings from the last time we were here. If you have any further questions, I could refer you to my engineer here, Dominic, regarding all the changes that we made to the plans.
Yep. And I know we were in receipt of the changes, and you've been here before also, sir, right?
I've represented it for your own use. So they had emailed me plot plans of their site, so you can have that.
Yep. Well, if you want to approach. Sure.
They did not have the topo. They did. And now we have to like that on our plans. These two lots, but you can share.
Those guys share that one. Yep. Melissa. So these are the same documents that were submitted.
Documents, but
Yep.
now we have topos that go with those, so you can actually see it the way it would be built.
Okay.
Nothing's changed other than the topography on that.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is there any other information you want to supply before we continue?
No, that's basically everything that we need for you.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would just like to say in favor to have the variance permit because my son have tried and did everything that's required to be done, and I think it will increase the property value in the area and just the land to stay there as vacancy. So I'm asking the board to please look into the matters, how we can have the permit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. I'd like to open it up to the board. Dennis.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I want to congratulate the applicant on a complete package here, and it's great to see all the necessary documents. I have a couple of questions, but I'm glad to see we really now have the documents necessary for us to render a decision, at least for myself personally. So, nice job.
Thank you.
The floor plans that you presented don't include a basement plan to what I have. Is that correct? Do we have a basement plan?
Yeah, but we don't have a basement plan because it was just going to be a regular, we were just concentrating on the upper levels. But if you take a look at your elevations, you could see how the basement would actually work. It has a door in the rear, so it would actually walk out. So if you take a look at the rear elevation, that's self-explanatory on that.
Right, right. So there's a basement under that
Under the
piece.
first floor only, not at the garage, obviously.
Not under the garage.
Because the garage is a slab on grade.
Great,
Right.
great, great, okay. And then the second thing is, I mean, you've done a nice job with the elevations by stepping the facade to minimize the exposed foundation wall, which I think is a great advantage here to this layout. We don't have on the plot plan the location of the rear stair and the front porch stair.
Yeah, that's up to their surveyor, but that's reflected on my plans where they should go. He probably could not have done that because it's a chicken and egg type of situation. You really need some elevations of the home before he can put it in there, but it will work because I based everything off of the elevations that he gave us.
Do you know offhand the dimension from the rear of the garage to the first riser?
To the first riser of which portion of the home?
So the deepest part of the rear stair, you have a 4-foot width, and then you have 4 treads.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think that whole dimension would be?
Well, each step is approximately 10 and a half inches.
Right, okay. So roughly 3.5 feet.
Rough, yeah,
So
let's say 310, just to be safe, right
Yep.
around there.
So it's about 8 feet almost.
Right.
And you have 5 feet at the corner,
Mhm.
and it widens, and you think that we'll have enough to get the 8 feet and then a landing at the base?
Absolutely, yeah. We've checked all our riser heights, everything meets code. There's nothing that exceeds 8 1/4 of an inch.
Worst case, you just have to continue the risers off to the side if you had to, but it looks like it fits. Great, great.
Right.
Great, I think that this works well. I would have liked to have seen something documenting the landscaping.
Yeah, that's, again, that's not my scope. That's whatever agreement they had with their surveyor.
Okay, so,
But I'm pretty sure that once things are happening over there, they'll landscape it properly. He actually explained that retaining wall that he has on the side is a big block retaining wall that's usually a company such as Shea Concrete would provide those big blocks, so he explained that to me on the phone. But as far as the landscaping, I'm pretty sure that to go with the theme of the home, they're gonna do a nice job with the landscaping because we sort of gave it an older type of theme so that it would be more in harmony with the neighborhood that's already there.
no, nice job. The structure looks great. It does look like it fits in seamlessly. It's nice. That retaining wall does, though, bring a little bit of, concern to me as far as how that's going to appear. So you're saying the material on the retaining wall is a block material?
I
or-
think it's one of those decorative wall, it's not a stark type of block, but that's something that he'll be actually specifying because, again, that's part of the scope of what he had done.
Would you mind if I suggested that as a condition, that the retaining wall be constructed out of a decorative block material?
Sure, yeah, I mean, decorative,
than-
those are pretty standard, you can get those.
Okay. How high is the retaining wall?
I think it's, according to what he told me, about 5 feet or so, and there might be a fence on there. I mean, he has topographies over there, and that's the best that I can give you just from the information that's in there.
Wow, so there's a fence on top of a 5-foot retaining
I
wall?
think he has a fence on there. I think the whole total, he said, is no more than 7 feet, including the fence. It varies because it slopes.
It says here 1 to 7 feet high with fence on top.
Right, so that's where it's varying, 1 foot to 7 feet. And again, depending on how the topography is going, as you get lower with the topography, the fence gets higher. As you get closer to the street level, it gets less.
Right. So it's less imposing on Westford Street, and it really kind of appears taller as you
Taller
reach the
at the
back of the
rear,
lot.
at the rear, right?
Right.
Not where it would be seen by most of the general public.
Okay, other than, I think, specifying the retaining wall having a decorative block material chosen, I think that, I feel great about it.
Terrific,
Nice job.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the petitioner. Just want to say I appreciate your patience. It's a new process. You had to come back to us a couple of times, but your updated plans with the representation kind of puts everything into perspective for us, and that's really what we're looking for. Some of the concerns I have were addressed by Dennis. I would like to see a landscape plan submitted because of the main thoroughfare, so I would be seeking that as a condition as well. But all in all, I'm glad you're where you need to be at this point to move forward with your project. Best of luck.
Thank you, Gary. Melissa?
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo what Gary just shared. I am really appreciative of the changes that you made in the elevations that was requested here. I also want to second the condition of a landscaping plan before it's finalized. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions. I just will echo the comments. I mean, it's, I think, your third time here now on this, but now, like Dennis said, we have a complete package, so it's easier for us to, other than some minor questions and conditions, to go ahead and approve it. So, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Van?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Thank you so much for being accommodating and coming back and forth and all the revised, updated plans. We do appreciate it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Van. Just a couple of questions, Swati, if I could. When we first had this come before us, there was some comments that came in from DPD. Do you have anything else from the city that we haven't addressed or spoken to that may be of interest to discuss?
No, the primary concern was the grade on the site, and that has been pretty much addressed with the elevation information, even though we don't have, I haven't gotten the plot plan, so if you can give me a copy of that for the record, that'll be great.
Okay.
The revised one that was submitted today. So ideally, we should have the complete information on the plot plan, because that gets recorded as part of the decision.
So you asked about the plot plan?
Yes.
So that's, sir, can you come up to the podium?
Yeah, the plot plans that
That's
you
what you-
submitted this evening are the ones that were given by their surveyor. So if you need an extra copy of that, I can email you an extra copy of what they have, and we have some hard copies here as well.
Yes, so if the board is, the porch information that is not included in the plan, if the board approves the plan with that, then the building department will be pretty much seeing that as the plan that was approved by the board. So it's up to the board whether that porch information should be included in a revised plan. You can definitely make a decision, but, making sure that that plot plan be revised to include the porch dimensions.
Right, so I assumed we would take the submitted plot plan that we received this evening, plus I'll call it the revised drawings, submittal dated 4/21. That's the most updated plans, correct? So if we have both the plans and the plot plan that he's,
Should be fine.
that'll be fine
Yes.
for DPD?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Okay. There was a point here, Swati, you talked about the foundation permit. Is that going to be incorporated with what we've already discussed, or do you need anything for that?
No, that should be sufficient.
Okay. Anything else as far as, yep. Well, I also appreciate your patience during this, but I think one of the board members mentioned either at the last meeting or even the first meeting, because of the size of the lot you have and the relief you're looking for, it's rather unusual for this board to look at something like that, but I think we all understand it'd be nice to have a nice home in there instead of a vacant lot. I noticed that the city's actually putting in all new sidewalks. Hopefully they'll do the road there too. I travel that road enough times. I know my tires don't enjoy it, but it'd be nice to have a nice new home there with a nice street, new sidewalk. So I appreciate your patience. I know it probably was painstakingly difficult for you, but we're trying to get the best plan that we can. I think at the end of the day, once you look at it, it'll be a nice pride of ownership in that neighborhood. And we haven't had anybody show up here in opposition. I don't see who would be in opposition. But again, if we look at the criteria for the variance, because your lot was so unusual and didn't meet and needed a lot of relief, I believe we can grant the variance just based on the special hardship on the shape and topography of the land. And public good, like I said, you'll definitely meet that. And I think we're not nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent of the zoning. So the only thing I have left is I heard comments regarding conditions. I'll go through them, Dennis, and if you have the same thing, we'll find landscape plan, which I think would also include your retaining wall, unless you want to separately state that. So I guess the other thing is we'll include the plot plan as submitted this evening, the new set of drawings as submitted and dated April 21st, 2014. Was there any other conditions any other members had? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion regarding ZB 2014-004, a variance at 173 Westford Street, seeking relief for dimensional requirements with the following conditions: to provide a landscape plan, also to provide a decorative architectural landscaping block material to be used on the retaining wall. And the other condition is to include the plot plan submitted tonight dated 4/3/14, as well as the plans submitted tonight dated 4/21/14.
Okay, could I have a second?
Second.
A roll call?
Mr. Bailey?
Approved with conditions.
Ms. Carino?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. McCarthy?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Peck?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve with conditions.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, you've been approved with conditions. I hope you and your mother enjoy the home. I wish you the best of luck. Have a good evening.
Congratulations.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, our next order of business is under new business. The applicant is CNF Realty Trust. Property is located at 122, 130 Andrews Street. Petition special permit to increase the curb cut width on Moore Street to 21 feet pursuant to section 6.1.1 of the zoning ordinance. Good evening, Mr. Flood.
Good evening, Mr. Bailey, members of the board. James Flood, 549 Roger Street, representing CNF Realty Trust. Arthur Faneris is the trustee. With me tonight is Dean Jenkins, who will be the contractor on the job, and Matt Hammer, who is our project engineer. We're before you tonight to a request to increase the width of the curb cut on Moore Street from 15 feet to 21 feet. We were before the planning board last Thursday night, and the planning board approved our application for site plan approval and 3 special permits. We had a special permit to reduce the lot frontage from 80 feet under section 5.1.1, and most of them ran from 65 to 74 feet. Also had a special permit on lot width. Lot 6 on the plan, as you can see, has a jog in the back that could not meet the 80% rule, and that's because of the old configuration of the lot. And then we had a special permit for the length of the driveway. A little bit of history of this, how this plan came about. came about as a result of numerous meetings with both the neighborhood in the Sacred Heart area and representatives of the DPD. The neighborhood did not want too many curb cuts coming out on Andrew Street because that's an area they use for parking. So that whole area up there years ago had an old alleyway in the back. So the idea came up to have a driveway coming in from Moore Street to service all of these houses. That way, the entrance would be in the back. People wouldn't see cars. They wouldn't see the parking from Andrew Street. So that's where this plan came about. The plan, as you can see, is approved, calls for 6 separate lots, and a homeowners trust will be established to take control of that driveway. They'll be in charge of the snow removal, the maintenance, the drainage that's in there. The land is zoned TTF, and in accordance with section 6.110 of the zoning ordinance, the maximum curb cut is 15 feet. There are, however, a couple of exceptions. If the parking facility servicing the site was all paved with pervious surface, the curb cut by right could be extended to 24 feet. But if it's not, the board does have the right by special permit to increase it to 24 feet if it finds that the curb cut is not detrimental to the neighborhood character, it provides for availability of on-street parking, and it helps with stormwater management. As to our site, there already is a curb cut just up from where we're going, which is 23 feet. So we're not really establishing a new curb cut on Moore Street. Also, although we're going to pave it with asphalt, we do have on both sides, there's a pervious strip which will be used for drainage. So, and it's all been approved by the city engineer. So that's part of one of the requirements. And once again, the whole purpose of the plan was to avoid additional curb cuts on Andrew Street so there'd be more parking available to people in the neighborhood. So I think we meet those requirements. We worked hard with the planning department and the neighborhood in this plan, and I would hope that people would approve this request for special permit. Matt's here, can go over.
Sure. So in essence, you're just here for the curb cut.
Curb cut, that's the only thing, yeah.
That is already established. I'm very familiar with the site. The curb cut is already there on Moore Street.
Right.
So you're going to use the existing curb cut and,
No, we're not. Because we're moving the curb cut, we have to meet the zoning ordinance, so we have to move it down a little bit, and that's why we're asking for the special permit to increase the size.
right. So where's the existing curb cut?
But it's a little change, but it's no change to the neighborhood character.
Right.
We're making more parking available on the street, and plus with the pervious surface along the driveway, we're providing for drainage, stormwater management, so.
So Swati, since they've already gone before planning, I gotta believe if they did the site plan review and everything was set up, city departments have all weighed in on this, emergency vehicles, whatever.
Yes.
So there is no, that's the only entrance and departure from that facility? Or do you still have a way to get in and out of there?
What was that, Bill?
Is that the only opening?
There's an opening on Andrew Street too, but we're gonna close that up.
Right.
Close that.
No, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's only gonna be one point.
One entrance, right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Plus, at the planning board, I think the planning board did vote to recommend to you people approval, so, at the meeting, so.
Why, of course. Why, of course. Swati, was there anything that the city had? I'm sure all departments weighed in.
Yes, this was.
We didn't receive anything, so.
Yes, we had multiple meetings, and the
Yeah.
project has been refined to a very good detail.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Ms. Flood?
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Matt's here if anyone has any questions.
I already bothered Matt, so I already put him to work pointing where the entrance was going. Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? Favor, hearing none. That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. I'd like to open up to the board. Mike?
No questions, Mr. Chairman, just another comment again. I mean, I know we're just here to approve the curb cut, but I think this is going to be a great project to redevelop an underutilized space. I mean, I know the people in Sacred Heart area are mourning the loss of another building there, but there was no turning back, I think, so that's it.
Thank you. Van?
This is a pretty straightforward petition. I think this is improvement overall to the neighborhood, so, and there's no opposition tonight, so I assume that they got the support they needed. So, best of luck.
Thank you. Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I love this plan. I think this plan is tremendous, and especially the idea that you've got something that kind of mimics what was there originally with that, and you've got the neighborhood helping to create something that really is outstanding. I mean, the fact that you're hiding the traffic by creating this road, and then you've meeting the requirements, other than the curb cut, which is minor.
The only concern the neighborhood had was on the corner lot, and what we did is we redesigned that building. We had to make a shift on, was it a fence we put on the side there?
Okay.
But they were very happy with it, and,
More of a statement there. Wow. Major improvement. I had a couple questions. The plan presented, the site plan presented has a, it seems to be indicating steps, but the elevations show maybe 2 steps. So is there a change on the elevations where the finished floor is being raised, or?
Really give you one perspective as you would see it from the sidewalk, but there is in fact steps in order to get into the first floor of the unit.
So do we have exposed foundation wall along the front of the buildings?
Just your typical 1 foot exposed that would vary between, 1.5 to 6 inches.
Great. And I had one other question. I didn't find it. Guess I can't. Oh, I know what it was. On the site plan, there's something indicated dotted that I couldn't quite read. The scale of these plans is a little small, but behind the first and second structure to the left, there's some dotted lines that propose a rectangle for some use. I'm not sure what it is. No, it's off the drive. It's on sheet layout and landscaping plan. I wasn't quite sure. Proposed 12 by 15 or 15 by 15 rectangle?
That's the required open space
Okay.
rectangle that needs to be provided on the plan.
Is there any separate dumpster or trash?
No, there'll be individual container units that'll be brought out to the sidewalk.
And are they picked up by private?
Municipal pickup.
city.
Municipal?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Outstanding.
One other thing we did too, I didn't bring it up, but with the exception of Lot 3, all of them have 3 parking spaces per unit as opposed to the required 2, so there's additional parking in there too. So we
And-
tried to incorporate everything
And you got parking for the rest of the neighborhood along?
on the street.
street.
Absolutely.
Win-win for everybody. Thank you. Nice job.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank the petitioner for the detailed plans. I did watch the planning board meeting and echoed some of their comments, and I do know the neighborhood very well, so with the move of that curb cut, it does increase parking. We actually increase parking, 1 full per unit and on the street as well. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary. Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for an excellent and detailed presentation and application. And just hearing how you responded to neighbor concerns about that corner lot is really, again, also appreciated. I don't have any questions at this point. I'm really looking forward to seeing this project completed. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, Mr. Flood, I think the only condition I'm going to put in here is that we incorporate our decision with the planning board's acceptance of April 24th. Are there any other comments from any other board members? Hearing none, could I have a motion, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2014-014 for CNF Realty Trust for a special permit to enlarge the curb cut on Moore Street to 21 feet with the following condition to include the approval from the planning board for April 24, 2014.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Sorry.
Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Bailey?
Approved with conditions.
Ms. Carino?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. McCarthy?
Approve with condition.
Mr. Peck?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve with condition.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Flood, Mr. Hammond, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yep. Okay, our next order of business is petitions, a special permit and variance for signage. The applicant is Group 1 Realty, Inc. Property is located at 732 Rogers Street. Petition, a special permit and variance to install new internally illuminated wall signs for an existing auto dealership pursuant to Section 6.3 of the zoning ordinance. And one of my most favorite people. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine.
Always a pleasure to see you.
How are you, Mr. Bailey?
Hi, how are you? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're planning?
Yes, I can, Mr. Bailey, members of the board. My name is Hazelwood Hopkins, 2 Phoebe Way, Worcester, Mass. And I'm representing the applicant and property owner, Group 1 Realty Incorporated. And as you well know, there is a Chrysler Jeep Dodge dealership at this location. Last year, we came in to talk about the ground sign, and tonight we're here to talk about the replacement wall signs. I have with me tonight Charles Martin, the Building Technologies. He's rehabbing that building to meet the current corporate standards, and Paul Greenan, the general manager at the dealership. In the first order of business, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to correct the petition. We are not petitioning for a variance. The signs all meet the wall sign allowance. We're only asking for the special permit for the internal illumination. And I think that vocabulary was picked up when I filled out the request for the abutters list, and it didn't get corrected, but we actually only filed a special permit application. So there is no need to discuss a variance. The new wall signs are in essence, in total, the same square footage as the existing. And Charlie has a nice photograph to show you, in essence, what the dealership will look like after the rehab, after the tower is added, the fascia is changed. The Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and this will actually be the digits 495 as they appear now. This is an existing non-illuminated sign. When we add these new signs together, we meet the wall sign allowance. This sign is non-illuminated. These 5 signs will be internally illuminated. And as the board likes, they'll be illuminated with LED. In your packet, I gave several photographs. I calculated the square footage of each sign, the grand total of the signage. I indicated the allowance based on the frontage is 240 square feet, and the total signage is 212 square feet. So that, in essence, is what we're asking the board to consider as a special permit for internal illumination.
Thank you. So the first thing I'll start with, Swati, as far as the variance, you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll strike that.
Thank
We're
you.
only talking about special permit. Anything else you want to add at this point?
Just that the current signs were illuminated. They've all been removed, am I correct? But they were internally illuminated, and I think I indicated what application granted that illumination a number of years ago.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open it up to the public. Does anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for a great presentation as well. I didn't actually, well, I did have one question. With the current signs, I'm assuming that you wanted to keep the new signs illuminated the same hours as the previous ones?
Yes.
Is that correct? What were the hours for that?
Is there a prohibition on illumination, Mr. Bailey, after a certain hour?
Well, there's not a prohibition, but Melissa, what's, the question was,
If there would be, what would the hours be for the illumination? Would it be the same as remains?
Mr. Greenan said they go off at 11 PM, the old ones as well as the new ones.
okay,
Thank you, I
You're
appreciate it. That's it.
all right, thank you. Mike?
Again, no questions, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments. I think that the new tower, although it's not part of what we're voting on this evening, when you look, it definitely draws the eye to the dealership. It's a sort of a boxy-looking, the dealership looks like a big garage right now, but whereas the tower, I think, will certainly improve the aesthetics of the building. I'm sure that's the intention.
It is.
And so, best of luck, and no other questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Van?
I don't really have any comments, Mr. Chairman. It's a very detailed package, and it's pretty straightforward, so, thank you.
Thank you, Van. Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think that also you've done a great job of making a great improvement, enhancement to the facility. The current signage is LED already, and we're trading it out for LED, is that correct?
I don't know if the current, if each of the current badges is LED, but all of the new ones will be LED.
Terrific, terrific. Nice job. Perfect. I just want to be clear, though, the illumination is 7 days a week, is that correct? Yes. 7 days a week, okay.
Yes, 7 days a week, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you again for your detailed plan. It's always nice to have you well prepared as you come in.
Thank you.
And I think the new sign that went up we approved looks great. That's, I up and down that road many times a day. That's my neighborhood, and the new facade will do wonders for you back there. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Gary. Well, that's why it's always a pleasure to have you come in. Because you always come prepared. Even if there's a question, you have an answer. Your package is always complete, so that's why,
We
I
do
said what
try,
I did at the
Mr.
beginning,
Bailey.
so no
I like to come
favoritism.
and hear you say it.
Right. No, it's a pleasure to see you come in. And I know this site has come here before. I recognize this gentleman. But based on what I heard this evening, I guess the only condition would be the 11 p.m. Shutting off of the lights. Are there any other board members that have any other comments? We also received comments from the city, and there were no issues that the city had also. So based on the criteria for the special permit that you're in here for the signage, I believe the applicant has met all the criteria. And with that said, I'd like to have a motion, please.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2014-015 for a special permit for internal illumination for signage. The applicant is Group 1 Realty Incorporated. with the following condition, that the hours for illumination continue to be what they currently are, with the lights operating until 11 p.m., 7 days a week.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
A roll call?
Mr. Bailey?
Approve with conditions.
Ms. Carino?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. McCarthy?
Approve with condition.
Mr. Peck?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve with conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been approved with conditions. Wish you the best of luck. Have a good evening. Okay, our next order of business is ZB 2014-16. The petitions of variance for parking. The applicant is Habitat for Humanity of Greater Lowell, property located at 133 and 135 Willie Street. The petition, it's a variance. The petitioner seeks a variance to reduce the reparking space requirements from 6 to 4 pursuant to section 6.1.4 of the zoning ordinance. Is there a representative of the petitioner here, please? Okay, take your time. Take your time.
Good evening. My name is Robert Oliva. I'm an engineer with David E. Ross Associates. I'm here tonight on behalf of Habitat for Humanity, who is proposing a duplex residential unit on Willie Street on the plan before you. It's located in the UMF zoning district in the Acre neighborhood. The duplex use is allowed under the zoning for that district. Why we're here tonight, we meet all the dimensional requirements for the building itself. However, we're proposing 2 parking spaces per unit rather than the required 3. Under section 6.1.4 of the zoning, the parking required for multiple curb cuts in this case would be 3 per curb cut. The existing parcel slopes up away from Willie Street to the back of the lot. There is also ledge present on the site. There's a prevalence of ledge in this neighborhood. The reason we can't extend our driveways further into the site is specifically due to the topography of the site. We're already cutting into that hillside to create a building pad for the duplex. The driveways to extend an additional 18 feet would be quite a hardship, given both to the cut that would be required, including the ledge that we know is there within that cut. So we're here tonight asking for a variance to allow 2 parking spaces per unit rather than the required 3. So we have a total of 4 parking spaces. 6 would otherwise be required without any relief from the zoning.
Okay. And I know in reviewing the write-up, there was the section in here, and I know we received communication from DPD regarding their overview, and there was also a letter submitted to us from Craig Thomas regarding, and if you can talk about it, or if Mr. Thomas is here, talk about the 2 spaces allocated 252 Mount Vernon Street.
Right. The two parking spaces are in addition to the 4 on site. They're to be leased by Habitat for Humanity from the city. So those 2 spaces are in addition to what we're providing on site. There's in Mr. Thomas's letter, there's some language about termination of that agreement upon some mutual agreement or upon a showing by Habitat that the minimum parking requirements are satisfied on site. So I don't see this, Craig. Craig, did you want to say anything specifically to that end? Thanks.
Craig Thomas, a renewal project manager for the city of Lowell. I thought Rob actually did a nice job summarizing my letter. The letter of the commitment of the city gives the necessary zoning compliant parking spaces so Habitat could begin construction. Again, as he stated, there's an ability to alter or change this either by action of this board, or if this board chooses a different path, then we also have the ability to further negotiate the location of additional spaces to meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else you want to add at this point?
No, not specifically. I can certainly answer any questions you might have.
Okay. I guess as far as parking goes, again, knowing the area pretty well, is there street parking on that street? It's kind of a, I don't want to say convoluted area, but
Really, the only residences right in that particular area are up Wigan Street, which runs up next to the site. Fronting on Willie Street, there really are no other residences. So the times I've been out there, there's really no on-street parking. Although I would say a couple people park on that site when it was vacant. I don't know where they go or where they belong. I'm not sure if the city is encouraging on-street parking there, but I don't know that it's prohibited per se.
well, yeah, I can't say I saw any signage. Swati, do you have any idea of that section of that road? Is there on-street parking?
I'm not sure whether it is there, but I know that it's nothing prohibited there.
Yeah.
So.
And I only ask since we're, obviously, people have visitors, I'm assuming. So if there wasn't parking on the street, and we're reducing the number of parking anyways, even though we're fulfilling it. It was just an observation I had when I kind of drove the area. Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's always nice to give a plug for what we're doing. So as a part of the redevelopment for the acre plan, this is increasing the build-out of Willie Street to the final residential lots that have yet to be tackled. Habitat's been a great partner with some of those. The benefit to Willie Street, as you see, the building is right up against the edge of the right-of-way. The right-of-way is actually 50 feet wide. And then if you go out there, the capacity in the right-of-way is beyond what you imagine, and that what looks to be a part of their site is actually part of the right-of-way. So we've been talking about options for having Habitat help potentially build out that intermediate right-of-way section between them and the actual travel lanes, but there's capacity for parking that we have planned as a part of the build-out, as well as a sidewalk to connect this, as well as the property next door to the new sidewalks we've been building on Rock and Willie going towards Broadway.
Sure. Okay. So thank you very much. Anything else you want to add, sir?
No, thank you.
I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Van?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Overall, I think this project is a great benefit to that neighborhood and to the city. In regards with the parking, I know, I drive by the area a lot because I live around there. Willie Street and Rock Street, they have a lot of street parking, so I guess I don't think it'd be any congestion in that end. So overall, I think this is a good project. So best of luck.
Thank you. Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, seems like an outstanding compromise to use a site for parking that already exists to supplement what you're doing here and minimize the pavement. If that's the case, is it true that the site where we're looking at the 2 additional spaces is already paved? Is that correct?
Sorry, I'll sit closer from now on. The site where the spaces are allocated is the former Susi site, which is used for parking as is. But again, either if Habitat chooses through this variance request or other means, this would allow them to terminate that lease so that all of their required parking would be met on site if this variance is approved.
Okay, so that's, what we're looking at is approving a variance to reduce the parking to 4 spaces.
Yes.
And not require Habitat to lease the additional 2 spaces at the adjacent site.
Well, again, this is a little tricky for me to say. It's up to them to decide. They have 4 spaces on site in the plan as is. What I've said is we commit to a lease with Habitat if they need, as they want to meet their zoning requirements. If they say we're going to use the 4 we have on site, which I assume assuredly they will, then they will use this decision, if approved by the board, to come and request to terminate this lease, which has yet to go into effect.
Got it. That's much clearer. Thank you.
Okay.
I did notice that you do have I mean, the site on paper doesn't do it justice, going out there and seeing what you're dealing with.
It's a huge improvement to the site.
There is, however, access to the rear of the site from Wigan Street that could provide an opportunity for off-street parking?
I mean, it was considered, if you can see the topography on the plan, there's quite a grade change from up above where there's a little bit of a flatter area, which would also require another curb cut. So we're not necessarily in favor of doing that, if there is an opportunity, but it's not something we really wanted to pursue.
I agree. I don't want to have more parking than absolutely required.
Okay.
You aren't meeting the minimum requirements, though. So you could meet minimum requirements by showing parking on the rear of the site.
Correct.
Okay. So granting a variance to save from having, I'm not sure. I do like the plan, however. Okay. Enough said. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I did visit the site. I think it's a great project. Habitat for Humanity is obviously a top-notch organization. I've worked with them years past in the Concord Gardner area, Ashburnham, and it's always nice to see that your agency working hand in hand with the city and moving forward to develop a solid plan is always a valuable tool when the assets we have here in the city working for the various departments are utilized and beneficial to you for your project. So my hats are off to the various departments that did transform this whole program moving forward, and I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate seeing affordable housing projects come across this board, so thank you. And the plans do look great. I did have a couple questions. So we did establish that there is on-street parking, is that correct? On both sides?
I
or one
believe so,
side?
yes.
Okay. And just a clarifying question, and this might apply to you, Craig, as well. So if I'm understanding correctly, there is a spot now, a current parking lot where people are parking now, is that correct? Will be lost if we grant this variance? Am I understanding that correct?
The existing site? No. Essentially, there's people parking illegally on the site. We don't know where they belong, but it's not, where they're parking on the site will be gone, but it's not established parking for any of the buildings or properties surrounding us.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see this in the plans. How big are the units that you're building?
The units are just a shade under 1,200 square feet apiece.
Okay, and how many bedrooms?
3 bedrooms.
Bedrooms each? Okay. I will share that I do have concerns around that area about parking and traffic, because I know it's pretty congested as is. And then knowing that the minimum requirement is not being met and could be met, makes me want to not approve this variance. So I know that's not what you want to hear, but I'm wondering if other alternatives have been looked at already to see if you could fit in 3 parking spots?
Other than the recommendation by Mr. McCarthy about parking above the house in the back of the site, we did explore several options on site to make it work. None of which really tie into effectively and economically developing the site due to the topography of the site. It's additional cut on that site is strictly ledge, which is just far too expensive of an undertaking for Habitat to take on for this project. So really the option we're left with is the 2 spaces in each driveway. Having said that, and looking at the plan, and Craig had stated, Willie Street is a 50-foot right-of-way, and the building will actually have what appears to be quite a large front yard in front of it, which is actually in the right-of-way. The building and a porch and small retaining wall, really just an ornamental block wall, are basically up against the right-of-way to be similar and in conformance with the other buildings in the area. As you can see on the plan, the driveways have that additional length out in the right-of-way. So while we're only showing 2 parking spaces dimensioned on the plan, realistically, you could park 3 cars in that driveway and still be outside of the edge of pavement within the right-of-way. Can they count as parking spaces? No, because they're actually within the right-of-way. Having said that, there is parking, more or less, for 6 cars in those 2 driveways. So I haven't included that on the plan, or I don't believe it's been included in the application, but between that and, you know, parking on the street if it's needed, there is parking there. So to go to the expense of providing, you know, additional earthwork on site, additional curb cuts, it doesn't make sense for us. We are, you know, it is low income, this is done, it's, so you understand Habitat for Humanity, so that every penny it hurts the bottom line. So, you know, I'd like to say it's my opinion that there should be plenty of parking, and I know it is a congested area, and I've been out there a number of times, both, you know, conducting some soil testing to see what was there, and on a couple of other occasions, and you know, there is some traffic on that street, but there is room to park. So it would be my opinion that certainly, I think we can facilitate the needed parking. So granting the variance, I don't believe is any great detriment to the neighborhood. And I think you could realistically grant the variance and not make a situation in that neighborhood any worse than it exists. There's very few cars parked, if any, actually on Willie Street all the times I've been there. So it should work, and I'm not concerned about it. That's easy for me to say. I'm their engineer. But I hope you'll consider that when you make your decision.
I appreciate your feedback on that. Final question. I don't know who mentioned it earlier, but it sounds like there's more development happening around that area and that there would be additional parking added. Do we have a timeline of when that might be completed? I'm just curious.
So that was something that I mentioned. It is always project specific, and that there are available parcels near that, but that in addition, it's always about the users that we have. These zoning areas, both UMF and light industrial, tend to be more flexible. They have smaller uses that have sometimes smaller requirements, but again, as this board knows very, very well, it all depends on exactly the use and how it's configured on the lot. So I'm very hopeful actually that I'll be coming with other partners before this board in the coming years with 2 or 3 sites not directly adjacent to this, but in particular farther down Cushing Street to talk about industrial redevelopment.
Thank you. Yeah. I have no other questions. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Mike?
No questions, just a quick comment. Actually, when I went out to the site Saturday afternoon to speak to the grade on Wigan Street, there was a either Waste Management or whoever the hauler is. The grade was so steep that the Waste Management truck tried to go up Wigan, and the rear end of it scraped on Wigan, and the guy was calling his supervisor to come out and figure out how they were going to get the truck up or down Wigan. So I think it would certainly, it speaks to your point about the grade and trying to add either access or parking halfway up Wigan or part of the way up. So, but I don't have any questions or any other comments. So.
Thank you, Mike. So when do we anticipate the project being totally done?
Totally done? What do you think?
Which means the construction of the building and what Mr. Thomas was talking about, the front of the, I'll call it the front of the building, where we're trying to envision 2 more spots so that you almost have 3 and 3. When do we envision everything being done?
My name is Scott Carpenter. I'm the construction manager for Greater Lowell. To answer your question, occupancy of the buildings is expected to be somewhere between the time frame of Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
With that being said, we always try to alleviate the problem of having to do landscaping in the spring. We will have pavement down per the order of the engineering department. All the other requirements for stormwater water management set in place as well. Hopefully stabilize all the soil before winter at that time. In the front of the building, where you see that little jut out into the front, that's a decorative retaining wall that we're proposed to put in to alleviate us having to go any set the building back just a tad, about 4 feet. And you can see the big space between that wall and the actual street side. So that's the area that we're going to leave some sort of pavement to that edge there to alleviate the fact of not having 3 parking spaces. So there will be some landscaping and beautification in the front of that building, but also, I mean, that building's 52 feet long, so you're gonna have that much width between driveways.
Okay. Well, Dennis and I were reviewing the plans here, so what this gentleman just explained, do you have any comments on that?
Sure. My first comment is that we're talking about counting spaces in a right-of-way that's not on their property as meeting the requirement. And I don't know if that's allowed. I don't think we can count spaces for these units that aren't on the property. Is that correct? I'm sorry, Swati.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you have to be, for it to be considered on-site, it has to be part of the...
Within the property lines.
Yeah.
If I could clarify my earlier statement, I'm not asking the board to count outside of or inside the right-of-way, in the city's right-of-way, as towards our parking count, but rather the pavement's going to be there, the driveway will be there, and somebody will park in it. So while it does not count towards our 4 parking spaces are on our site. The extra length of the driveway that's in the right-of-way is large enough to accommodate a car. So I was just merely asking that in the board's decision, when we're looking at the parking requirement, scratch that, not the parking requirement. The parking requirement, we're providing 4 spaces. Realistically, there's more than that, within the right-of-way and on the street. So I'm asking merely to consider that when you render your decision. I'm not asking you to count those spaces as towards the parking count, because they're not, because they're within the right-of-way.
Is there a sidewalk?
There's no sidewalk.
So you wouldn't be in violation of crossing a sidewalk with a parking space?
No.
So it kind of works.
Well, it becomes a problem only if you have a sidewalk in future.
Right. Right. That's exactly the hang-up. In the future, we are kind of, and we are talking about a future sidewalk on that street?
Yes, again, the nature of that street is such that I would like to build that out, because again, this is the final residential piece, in addition across Wigan Street to the residential sites that sit on top of the hill. So I would like to build out a sidewalk in front of that, but again, even there, we're talking about the standard 4 or 5 foot sidewalk, and that would be right up against the building, as opposed to farther out on the edge of the street.
But we would be parking across a sidewalk, which I don't think is allowed in the city.
Again,
I think that's a ticketable offense or something, yeah, right.
Well, the reason why I was asking, and Dennis and I were looking through the plans, and the reason I was asking when it was going to be finished, if the finished product came out to what Dennis and I were discussing, and I understand what you're saying, not counting the 2 that are in the right-of-way, if the finished product was done and we don't gain the 2 spaces, I'll put it that way, then I would probably condition and go back to the lease arrangement to at least get the 6 spaces. I guess what's unfortunate about that is that Mount Vernon isn't closer to the site. Is it a long walk? No. You're talking about the lot on the corner of Mount Vernon and where the basketball courts are, and
actually
right?
across the street from that, the Susie site.
Oh, the Susie site. Okay.
Yeah, it's not far.
All right. That's what I was trying to get to. No, we can't count the 2 that you're talking about. But based on the way this was being drawn up, I said, well, is there a way we're going to get 3 and 3? Almost like, let's get the finished product done, and then if we need to, then entertain, since we have the letter here from Mr. Thomas about meeting the other 2 spots. I'm just trying to make this, not make it work, but I'm just trying to figure opportunities here that we have. Because having the letter in front of us kind of says to me, you know, there was an opportunity to gain 2 spots, and I didn't hear anything that the petitioner wasn't in favor of going with this lease arrangement.
Well, I think in the long run, the applicant would prefer the variance and not continue with the lease agreement. If the board wants to tie that in to a decision, then they'll have to do that.
Right. And you said that it's 2 units with 3 bedrooms each, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Which the bedroom thing always comes into play with number of spots.
Understood.
You know, so it kind of puts the board in a position of trying to work a solution here. Swati, any ideas, anything that we haven't talked about here that may help?
I think the applicant was presenting the lease as an option that's available, but, you know, considering the nature of the occupants who will be, this is a nonprofit organization, so this, you know, going long-term, the lease may not be a long-term feasible option for all the occupants of that building. So I think that's what you're trying to. So I think the request for the variance is basically to understand if the neighborhood, if you know, granting a variance is not going to impact the neighborhood that much, that will be the ideal situation for the applicant. And currently viewing the situation of that neighborhood as it is right now, without the sidewalk and with no other residences opening into Willie Street, the planning department does not, you know, and we totally understand this is a case of the grade and the ledge presence on the site that is seeking making the applicant request this variance. So with the present day as it exists with that neighborhood, the planning department does not have any problem with the variance request.
Yeah, and I might be wrong, but that end of that street is different than if you head back towards North Common. There is parking that's, as far as I'm concerned, is street parking, because you got the curbing, and that street's been there for many years, just like the end where this house is going has been there. And there's more mixed use, as far as I'm concerned, at that end. So Mr. Thomas, I don't know if you said something about, was there future plans to do any other homes down there, or pretty much the area is going to stay the way it is? Because I think after that property, then it's the gas company, right? They own down to the end of that street. I don't see them selling off the land to put housing in there. I suppose it could happen, but you know what I mean? Then there's, I think, a body repair shop on the other corner.
The other side is,
There's a little bit of residential diagonally to the left of your property. There's residential.
There's 3 homes.
Yeah.
Those are the only homes in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So I understand the position of the city. I mean, I don't think this board's trying to act unfavorable to your petition. That's why I asked about the on-street parking. I think the issue is there's no sidewalks. I didn't see anything posted, so as far as I'm concerned, you can park in the street now. I might not know what I'm talking about, which is probably true.
If I may make one comment,
Yep.
This is totally different than Rock Street, as you know.
Yep.
There's parking on both sides of the road, traffic is nonstop, whether it's a cut-through or they're going to work or school.
Sure.
Much more dangerous of a road than Willie Street is. I think the things that we work very, very hard and diligently to place the house to try to figure out the elevations of the sewer and the water and so on and so forth, because the right-of-way is so deep. So that affected everything that we did as far as the height of the foundation, the setback of the home, to get all those pitches to work.
Yep.
And if you were to scale that out, those 2 driveways actually meet the 54 feet that is required for 3 parking spaces. The only throw-off is 10 to 15 foot right-of-way that is there that we have to be offset from that another 3 feet, not from the edge of the road. So in a sense, if we were to go and meet all the requirements for 3 parking spots in that one driveway, our driveway would be 76 feet long, which is kind of, well, long. It would be into that hill another 15 or 20 feet, which is all solid bedrock. So we're cognizant of the fact, the problems that you have on Rock Street, parking in the area in general. But I think that the relief that we have as far as using the right-of-ways as part of the driveways doesn't count, but it's there.
If I could just take a minute and go back to the criteria and prerequisites for you to be able to grant a variance, in specifically in Swathi's memo to you. Number one, the special hardship owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land. I think I hope I've expressed that the topography of the land is a detriment to extending those driveways, and we realistically can't. So if I haven't demonstrated to you that we do have a hardship relating to the topography, I'm telling you now that we do. Number two, if relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. We've discussed the fact that off-street parking on-street parking is not prohibited as far as we know. We'd need 2 spaces on street to meet the requirement of the 6 of zoning. So I don't believe there's any detriment to the public good by what we're proposing. And number 3, the relief requested can be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent of the zoning. I don't think we are really derogating from the intent of the zoning. We're talking tonight that we can provide a couple of cars on street, off-site, but on street. So, and whether or not we look at those spaces realistically in the driveway and just look at the 4 on site and 2 on the street, I don't think, while we're not providing 6 spaces to meet the letter of the bylaw, we can park 6 cars out there, and therefore satisfy the requirement of 3 per curb cut opening. So I think we've demonstrated that you can safely and adequately grant the variance based on those 3 items. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for you to consider.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
I actually agree with the petitioner sort of summarizing or re-summarizing. We're voting, well, I'm not voting this evening, but we're voting on just, I almost wish we didn't know about the potential use of the extra parking spaces, and we were just, because I think it's clouding some of our decision on the fact that there's these 2 extra spaces hanging there, when really we can just approve the variance for 4 spaces instead of 6, because we know there's plenty of on-street parking, and it's a hardship to get the 6 spaces on site. So thank you for, summarizing or re-summarizing the kind of straightforward vote that we're taking on the variance.
Thank you, Mike. Dennis?
I agree with you that it does seem like we are hitting the notes for meeting, in my opinion, the special permit requirements. The dimension that we have for the pavement of Willie Street, I know it's a 50-foot right-of-way, but the actual pavement width, do we know what that is?
I can quickly scale it for you if you like.
Because we're saying that there's access for on-street parking today on Willie Street, as well as travel lanes for 2-way traffic. So that would be roughly 38, 40 feet width. How much would that need to be? 24 and 16? 40? I don't think we have 40. So that, to me, 2-way traffic would be close to 20 feet wide, maybe, minimum, and then another 9 feet width for the parking space on either side, so you're 38, so you're a little shy of on-street parking that meets criteria for on-street parking, I think. However, what is the overall length of that parking driveway, including going from the existing pavement to the rear of the site? What does that whole thing add up to? And a parking space is 18, so 36, 54. But you don't have room for a sidewalk then?
No, 3 cars parked in each driveway.
Is there any way you could extend it a couple feet? Get a little closer?
As far as extending the driveways, I know they're out there digging around now, and it's all ledge. Removing ledge is just going to be a huge
Enough said.
undertaking.
I know what ledge is. Enough said. I understand.
And you're talking, especially on the right-hand side, not so much the left-hand side, it's not ledge below ground, it's a sheer wall.
I know, I saw it. It's quite a hardship.
Position in the building, that was a challenge for us.
I do appreciate the idea of putting the house here. I think it's a wonderful,
Here we are on Willie Street.
it's great. It's a great idea, no question about it.
No ledge on Rock Street, but we're on Willie Street.
Yeah.
no ledge, so.
But I do think you're striking the right notes for hitting the hardship, or the requirements for the special permit. And I like the project, so I don't see it happen.
These units going to be purchased?
Yeah, the Habitat for Humanity homeowners are in the end the actual homeowners of the units. We are basically the builder in the bank. They
Yep.
have a regular mortgage just like anybody else, paying
Yep.
to us.
So you're the seller and they're the buyers?
We are the seller.
They have to meet certain criteria? Yep. Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to speak for myself. I'm in favor of the variance because Huh? That's variance.
We are requesting a variance.
Yep, it's okay. Because, you know, the city took a look at it. I think each of the board members have taken a look at it. There might be some credence to Mike's comment about, you know, no deference to you, Mr. Thomas, about the letter for the leasing, which made sense to me. But I think based on, if we're going to talk about the variance and the special hardship with the topography and the issues you have with the ledge and everything else, one could argue, well, the house doesn't belong there, but I believe, you know, I have no issue with the house being there. If the ownership, they're going to be owner occupied and they have 2 parking spots, then I guess it's up to them to figure out how they're going to work that. I still believe there's parking on the street. That's not the getaway for granting a variance, though, either. We don't consider parking on the street. But if we're talking about the variance, or we're talking about topography and a special hardship, I certainly think you meet that criteria. So for myself, I'll be voting in favor. It's just the petition, I was thinking about the petition around the leasing with the city. So if it's private ownership, they couldn't come before the city and try to get a couple more parking spots. Am I assume that or not? Because the letter says it's through the Habitat, it isn't through individual ownership, correct?
To the applicant, which is us.
Correct.
So once the houses are sold, then that lease potential is gone anyways. That's all I'm trying to, you know what I mean? If they wanted to get extra parking, they could pay for it themselves, I guess is what I'm saying, but I don't have a vision of what's going to happen with that street down the road, so based on that, you know, I'm going to vote in favor. Any other comments from any of the board members? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2014-016 for a variance for parking. Applicant is Habitat for Humanity of Greater Lowell, located at 133 and 135 Willie Street.
Could I have a second?
Second the motion.
A roll call?
Mr. Bailey?
Approved.
Ms. Carino?
Approve.
Mr. McCarthy?
Approve.
Mr. Peck?
Approve.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much.
Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks, Mr. Thomas. Okay, our next order of business is ZB 2014-17. The petition's a special permit for use. The applicant is Kevin Stewart. Property located at 97 Tanner Street. The petition is special permit. The petitioner seeks a special permit to operate a towed vehicle stowing establishment pursuant to Article 12 of the zoning ordinance. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Appeals, my name is Attorney Gregory Curtis. I'm with the firm of Goldman and Curtis at 144 Merrimack Street. I'm here before you tonight on behalf of Kevin Stewart, who is a prospective purchaser of the property at 97 Tanner Street in Lowell. We're petitioning for a special permit with regards to 12.6J, which is the lot for towing stowed vehicles. Mr. Stewart has been operating a tow business in Lowell for over 25 years. He's been had a tow contract with the City of Lowell, also with the Massachusetts State Police. He does towing in the Lowell area, 495, the Lowell Connector, Route 3. He's been stationed for many years at the 117 Congress Street location, which is a industrial zone that borders right on a residential zone, and it also is a cluster of buildings that has many different businesses that operate out of there, whether they be automotive. There's a establishment that sells lawnmowers, used to be down at the corner. I'm trying to remember the name, but it's a very highly congested area. When the opportunity came about to possibly purchase his property on Tanner Street, Mr. Stewart was very interested in it. His business has grown over the years. He's been doing more towing. He's employed more people. He has 8 to 10 people that he employs around the clock. They do towing basically 24 hours a day. That site at 97 Tanner Street was an old junkyard. It was a Class 3 license for many years. In fact, way back, it was B&L Used Auto Parts that I can recall maybe 30 years ago, and then it was owned by the Sheehan Trust, and it has not operated as a Class 3 license for well over a year. In the meantime, the property has fallen into somewhat disrepair, and I think as many of you have probably gone by the site, building needs a little bit of work, and the fencing and the surrounding area needs plenty of work. It's roughly a 1-acre parcel. It is in the GI zone. It abuts on the right side, property owned by Scannell Boiler Works, and across the street is, of course, a Silresum site and also Lowell Iron and Steel. And on the left side, looking at the property from Tanner Street, is Cambridge Street. And down at the end of the property is a small parcel that is owned by the City of Lowell. There's also another small parcel owned by individuals that I think is in tax title right now. So the extent of the business that we want to address is towing of vehicles. Under the ordinance, we need to have a special permit. We have also applied for approval from the Conservation Commission. We met with the Conservation Commission last Wednesday. I think they were on board with what we're doing. However, they want to see some staking of the rear property line. There's only about 43 feet of the rear property line that is in the buffer zone for the conservation. But with the difficult winter we had, and at the time that the engineers went out there with Steve Erickson from the environmental, it was very difficult to try to place stakes in 2 feet of snow and frozen ground. But now we're going to be able to do that. We have a meeting on Thursday to have that rear property line staked out, so that next meeting with Conservation will be able to show them exactly where we're planning on keeping the buffer zone and also where we're planning on putting some filtration. Again, this is not a repair facility or a dismantling facility. Most of the time, what you're going to have is very few people coming to the site to retrieve an automobile. Your vehicle's been towed by the Lowell, or unfortunately, or the state police for some reason, or maybe it was involved in an accident and towed. They usually stay there a few days, maybe sometimes one day. Other times it could be a couple of weeks, but eventually they're moved out of there either by the insurance company or by the actual owner of the vehicle. So you don't have any activity other than stowed vehicles. Our plan is to improve the property tremendously. One, improve the building. We're not changing anything on the footprint of the building, but it needs siding, it needs a roof, it needs painting. The biggest challenge is going to be the security. To have a towing facility for the city and for the state, you need to have a secure location. And we plan on refencing the entire site. On the right-hand side, it would consist of Jersey barriers with fencing at the top of the Jersey barriers, because some of the problems you run into with towed vehicles is sometimes people like to go retrieve them without either paying the tow or for some reason decide they just want to drive it through the fence. So we try to dissuade that by having Jersey barriers down the right side. On the left-hand side, it would be another 8-foot chain link fence screened and a sliding gate at the front. So the only way into that property is right from the front with a sliding gate next to the building. There's a gate there now, but the complete fencing system is going to be removed and replaced. There's also now, over the years, there's been encroachment on the city property. And that fence is going to be moved, all the fencing will be taken down, and the fencing area will be on the property line or just within the property line. So there's an area that the city, I think, is planning, and I took a look today at the new Ayers City industrial development, which I think is a great opportunity for the city to do something with a lot of the area. But again, we have to be realistic about it. This could be 10, this could be 15 years down the road, just as the acre redevelopment project started slowly and then it works up. My client understands that. He understands that his potential property may be one of the acquired properties at a later point, but it could be quite a ways down the road. But he's always been a businessman in Lowell. He's always worked in the towing business. He knows it very well. He runs a clean operation. We're not worried about hazardous materials there. The Conservation Commission is hopefully going to give it its blessing once they go out and take one more view to see where we're staking out that rear property line and staying away from what is the River Brook area of the waterway back there. And I think it makes sense. From a safety point of view, we're down in an industrial zone. The majority of a lot of that area is automotive. I eventually think it's probably going to transpose into more what they're asking for is light industrial development and that type of manufacturing. But right now, it is a lot of automotive. There's no neighborhood right where that location is. The backside abuts the brook and the Lowell connector. The right side and across the street is Scannell, and on the left side, there's O'Keefe and a couple of other automotive facilities on the Cambridge Street, which goes down to a cul-de-sac at the end. There are several businesses there. So I don't think there's any impact on any type detriment to any neighborhood. Safety standards are much higher than where he is on Congress Street. Congress Street, you're abutting in a residential area, and on Tanner Street, you have full access to get in and out. You have a nice wide street. You don't have a lot of activity down there late in the day, other than some larger vehicles going back and forth. And to get in and out of this location, very open, good visibility, I think it only makes sense to have that type of operation in that location rather than where it is now at the Congress Street location. So we would ask the board to approve the special permit. I know the procedure is that we normally get Conservation Commission approval. I would say if we could make it subject to Conservation approval, that we are meeting with Conservation on May 14th. I think it's a Wednesday, May 14th was the next meeting. Unfortunately, it wasn't just a week away. It was 2 weeks away. It's 3 weeks away from last week. But nevertheless, I think we would definitely, take any input that they have. We're looking at putting some greenery in the back. They're looking to prevent these invasive type of weeds that grow along that Meadow Brook. And I know the potential down the road is to create an area over there, a small park area over there. And we're on board with that. We're on board with keeping the back of this property away from the brook, keeping a secure fence and even some Jersey barriers so no possibility that a vehicle could go down towards the brook or slide down. It's a very steep embankment where the brook is. And also to shade it so that you won't see any vehicles there. When you drive down Tanner Street, right now, you see all this dilapidated fencing and pieces of sheathing, and it's a mess. And this would be a real top-notch fence that is going to hide whatever's there, and you don't have a salvage yard with 5 cars parked on top of each other. You're going to have about the height of a motor vehicle, and that's going to be it. So you're not going to see anything unless you slide that gate open to go in, and nobody can go into the back unless it's the employees. When you go to pick up a vehicle, you'll go into the office area, you'll wait there, they'll go out, get the vehicle, and bring it out. There's adequate parking out in front, 3 or 4 or 5 cars. And again, it's not a high-volume business. This is where people come and go once in a while, a few times in the course of the day. The wreckers will go in and out, and the wreckers will go in the back, the tow vehicles, and that's where they'll be stored. So I would ask the board to look favorably on it. I think it benefits the neighborhood up off of Congress Street to get those type of activities away from right next door to residential properties, and there's no potential for residential properties down at this location. If anything, you know, my client understands that potentially down the road, it may be a property that the city's looking to acquire. So I'll open it up to questions from the board.
I guess what I'll start with first, Mr. Curtis, is I think you hit on a couple of the, you received the letter from the city where they had their comments.
I did not receive it. I thought they would email it to me. They did not send anything.
Okay.
I've been talking with
Do you have
Joe.
an extra copy?
I thought I would receive it today, but I did not.
That's okay.
Thank you.
So why don't I just give you a minute or two, Mr. Curtis, and I'll say on page 2, the project comments, if you can just
Sure, I'll take a quick look at that.
scan through that for a second, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
I'd like to go through some of the points there, because I think you kind of talked to some of these already, so maybe just get a little bit more explanation. So Section A, where they, again, I don't know if everybody saw it, but I saw the article in the paper and what they were talking about for that whole corridor. So the landscape plan should include additional vegetative screening adjacent to the city-owned parcel. Because I live an exciting life, I watched the conservation meeting when you were there, and I think they specifically were talking about the boundary down by the brook is where most of their concerns were, correct?
Right, I think what's happened over the years, the fence that is currently there is on the city property.
Yep.
It's by probably 20 or 30 feet. So when that fence comes back, it's going to open up a large area on the property line that's going to become a green area. Now, do we want to beautify that area? Sure. If the city, hopefully, we can work with the city. The city is looking to make that a green area, and that's something that would abut our property with fencing. You know, we have to have the security of the fencing, but that certainly could be an area that could be landscaped along the property line, and hopefully the city will look into bringing it right down to the Meadow Brook area.
So is Mr. Stewart's fencing at the rear of the property going to be the same as what he has on each of the sides?
No.
I know you explained
No,
about
on
the
right-
Jersey
on
barrier.
If you're looking at the property from Tanner Street, on the right side, our proposal is to have
Yep.
Jersey barriers with fencing at the top, screened.
What's the height of that fence?
Total with the Jersey barriers would be 8 feet.
8 feet, okay.
I think the Jersey barriers are roughly 3 feet to 4 feet, and then you'd have another 4 feet on top of that for safety purposes and protect anything coming out. When you get down to the back,
Yep.
there's only about a 43-foot length of the property that abuts the conservation area, the detention area, not the detention area, the area that the conservation has determined buffer zone. And that, we want to put Jersey barriers for 2 reasons. One, prevent any vehicles from possibly going down there. But 2, fence it, but after the fencing, going down would still be on our property to put vegetation, to put maybe arborvitae, or put something that will grow eventually, naturally, that will cover that area. It's not a lot of work, it's not a lot of money for the size of the area, but it's still going to be our land, but we're going to be in a buffer zone, and as long as the conservation approves the type of vegetation, we'll be fine. Now, when you come around the corner, there will not be any Jersey barriers along Cambridge Street and coming up. That will be all fencing.
8 feet?
8
same, will be
feet.
the same.
All the way down, shield so that you're not looking in and seeing what's in there. But again, there could, my client would be happy to work with the city if they're going to develop that area down there. And there's quite a bit of land, I think, once they realize how far off that current fence is, that could be easily vegetated or easily screened to some extent with some vegetation that eventually will grow to hide even the fencing. But,
I mean, the front of the building is pretty much hardscape, isn't it?
it's the front of the building, you're gonna have a sliding gate, the building needs siding, the building needs a roof, the
But I
building needs.
mean, they're talking about a landscape plan, what,
It's all hot top, it's right on the, it's right on the
it's all
street.
hardscape.
There's
Yep.
a little bit of there's just hot top there and enough for maybe 3 or 4 vehicles, and then you have the gate that opens. The
Yep.
rest of the building comes almost right out to the street. So I don't think we'd be doing anything to the front of the building other than improving the aesthetics of the building.
Okay, and I'll probably come back to that. So we discussed that. The screening currently existing, you've already gone through that. You're tearing down all existing fencing and replacing with new. Yep.
All brand new. And,
And site should be screened from the street. You've addressed that also, because on Cambridge Street. you're
yeah, I
gonna-
think they're talking Cambridge Street, and maybe even, normally with these sliding gates, you can even screen on the sliding gate. So when the gate goes across, they either put the slats in, and you don't really see what's behind that gate. If you go right up to it, you certainly can. But there's not a big area on Tanner Street. Most of the area goes down Cambridge Street, and then we'll cut in to the back, where the city is eventually planning to, I think, develop a little green park down there.
So, Swathi, regarding the landscape plan, as far as me personally is concerned, I think Mr. Curtis has described the rear of the property, which, again, I watch conservation, I kind of understand what they're talking about. The front, I believe, is pretty much just all hardscape. I know we could maybe request to do something around the front of the building, but I think the operation that this gentleman's going to have is pretty much for operations only, for people, for his own men to show up.
This is
and
not a business
pick up
where people are
vehicles.
coming to stay. They come and pick up their vehicles
Yeah.
and leave.
Is there something in particular the city would like to see in the front of the building?
I think it was primarily screening more than an aesthetic purpose.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Curtis agrees with that. I
Yeah.
believe it sounds like, he would fulfill that need.
Yeah, the aesthetic part was more in reference to a future park development along the brook.
Okay.
And,
Great.
and for signage, we would come back before the board if I don't anticipate there's any type of illuminated sign that's gonna be going up there. It's not a business where we're attracting
Right.
customers. This is where you
Yep.
just wanna know where your car was towed to and you wanna come there to pick it up.
Yeah, because I think once you get to the signage thing, that based on what you're proposing, then the city will let you know if you need to come
Right, if we need to
before
come
us.
before you, we'll certainly come before the board. And, we do, I think the Conservation Commission was very open to the whole idea, and we're trying to keep a buffer zone where even though we own this property, we're gonna be far enough away that we're not gonna be impacting anything that may impact the waterway. This is impervious ground. This is, it's crushed asphalt is what it is. There's no pavement back there, so vehicles will be parked there, brought in and out, and we have no intentions on changing that type of material that's there, which I think is better for conservation purposes.
Okay. Anything else you want to add at this point? Because that's all I have for questions, at least at this stage. If not, I'm going to open it up to the public. Any?
I
you all
have no
set?
further
Okay.
comments.
Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none. That portion of the public hearing is closed. And before I move to the board members, we received 3 different communications in support of the project. I'm not going to read each of them, but the first one came from McKenna O'Keefe at 133 Cambridge Street in support. That was signed by Bob O'Keefe. The second one was from Lowell Iron and Steel Company in support, and that was signed by Dennis Scannell. And the third one is from, I guess, now was it the current owner?
No, he was a prior owner, 2 owners ago, that owned it back in I think the 1970s and 80s, B&L Auto Parts, and he's known Mr. Stewart for 30 years, or 40
That's
years.
Robert D. Ambrosi? Okay.
Ambrose?
Okay.
Ambrose.
Ambrose, okay. I know I said I'd wait for the questions, but has Mr. Stewart purchased the property yet, or not?
Not yet, no,
Okay.
no. We
know
were
you said
going
that,
to
but-
purchase it, and then we determined that, I said, you need a special permit. You can't be thinking you're going to purchase it before you get a special permit. That's not not from a lawyer's point of view, that's not the way you do things. So,
Yep.
at this point,
Okay, so the public discussion is closed at this point. I'm going to move to the board. Gary.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank council for volumes of information you provided tonight on a very straightforward petition. I think, to Mr. Stewart's credit, maintaining a business in the city and moving in that light, even, with downloaded plans of what that development site is planned,
Yep.
is a credit to the type of businessman and the commitment you have to the city, and I do appreciate that. I did walk the site. Tanner Street is known for the automotive industry. Property owners do take pride in their property down there, and I think that site does need some work. It's dilapidated, and I'm very confident from my knowledge and hearing of how the Stewarts operate their businesses in the city, they'll do well down there. And it's always nice to hear that an incoming property owner is going to take onus to his boundary line and move forward in the direction where he should be, as opposed to overstepping a boundary line as the predecessor has done, and creating open space within the community for the city and working hand in hand. So I do support this petition. I wish you the best of luck down there.
thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Melissa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great presentation. I support this petition as well and have no questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike.
No questions, just a comment. I went out to the site on Saturday. There's already, whoever's responsible for cleaning it up already has improved the site greatly.
Yeah.
Other than that wall, like you mentioned, the wall, if you're looking at the building to the right, but I know
Yeah.
that sheeting
It's
is
all
all
gonna be
gonna come
coming
down.
down.
But it looks, it's greatly improved. Hopefully, as plans go forward, that continues, so. And I think, I just have a question, still being somewhat new to the board, but I think someone did mention that we could vote tonight to approve with the condition that the Conservation Commission comes back with. Okay.
Right.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Van.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I think that the new location for Stewart's Towing, it's a perfect location for the business. That area is really industrial, manufactural based. And to Mr. Curtis' comments about the safety, I think it will increase safety in the area that is now. In full disclosure, I do live on Congress Ave, so I kind of abut Stewart's where it's located right now. So I do agree that having the fence in the new location will greatly improve the safety of the business and the patrons who go there. So overall, I think this is a good project, and I support it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Van. Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it does seem like a logical place for this to go. I was wondering if you could describe the access to the site. You mentioned that it would be off Tanner Street, and it would be just one entry and exit, is that correct?
Looking at the plan and looking from Tanner Street, where you see 97 on the building, just to the left, that is where the sliding gate allows access to the backyard. That's the only place. The right side right now is covered with some large pieces of metal. That's all going to be fenced in on the right side, and then all the way down the right side property line that abuts the trustees of the 41 Tanner Street Realty Trust. I think, is that Mr. Scannell that owns that next door? To the right. That's Scannell from Lowell Iron and Steel own 41. So the only access is looking at the building to the left. That's how you would get in. There's no access from Cambridge Street. There's no access from the right side of the building, and one way in, one way out, and that's how you really want it for stowing and stowing vehicles that are towed on police orders. I mean, they have their requirements. You have to have a fenced-in area that's secure with lighting, and you have to have a waiting area for people that are coming to pick up vehicles, and they have all that inside the building for people to wait, and then they would bring their vehicle out.
So I'm just trying to understand how the operation works. I've only had cars of my own towed in Boston, not in Lowell, so I
Yeah, well,
don't know quite what
typical,
the
any
experience
city, you would have it towed, they put it into a secure facility, because one, you don't want somebody vandalizing the car when it's on your watch, and they're put into the back, the gate is closed, when you come, you go into the main office of this building, which will be the 97 Tanner Street, there's an office there with doors, you'd go in, you'd work out paying for your vehicle, someone would go out, bring it out to the outside area of the fence, and that's where you'd drive it away. So public is not allowed to go in the back. Safety, insurance purposes, they're not going to be able to go into the back. Only the drivers and the workers for the operation. And this goes on 24 hours a day. I mean, even though this is closed up, if they get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning to go pick up a car, the drivers know, they go, they unlock the gate, they put the car in, and then the gate's locked, and you come back in the morning to pick it up.
Now, are the tow trucks stored here as well?
Yeah, they'd be stored in the back, but some of the tow trucks are operated by the individual drivers and are brought, if they're on call, they sometimes take them home, or they'll take them to other locations so that they're ready to go in case they get a call by the police or the state police. And this is a great location because he does a lot of towing for state police on 495 Route 3, the Lowell connector. And even though there's plans down the road to change that whole Plain Street and how do you get into Tanner Street area, it's a much better location than trying to fight your way off of the connector at Gorham Street at 3A and then get over to Congress Street. It's a very tight, convoluted mess over there with residential and commercial that's been there for many, many years, and I think it's going to be a great, great improvement for Mr. Stewart, and also I think for the neighborhood out there on Congress Street.
Great. And how many cars do you expect to be able to store? Up to 30 cars?
It's a
40
1-acre
cars?
parcel. It's a pretty good-sized parcel, but I don't know. You think maybe 30 or 40 or 50?
It varies. I mean, you never know how many you're gonna
What do
tow.
you have now? Could you have 20 at a time?
Yeah, sometimes we could have 40 in the wintertime with the
Right,
snow.
right.
Yeah, if they get a snow ban and they have to tow 20 or 30 cars, they can do it. But on average, it could be 20 to 25 cars in that lot. But it's a good-sized lot. It's a little over an acre total, and I think the actual land area is just around 40,500 square feet.
And right now, it's sort of a gravel kind of surface. It's not exactly a hard
There's no hot top. It's that ground-up
stone
kind of
dust.
asphalt that they put down over the years, and that's what it's going to remain.
And
I
so
mean,
you'd be plowing this, I imagine, in the winter, and so you need
Yeah,
snow
well,
storage
yeah,
somewhere.
they would plow it, and once it freezes up, it freezes up. But I think for conservation purposes, they don't want you paving that where you're gonna have runoff coming down and maybe going into the brook and that type of thing. But that was a comment for conservation.
It is a beautiful package that the city has envisioned here for that whole Air Street Industrial Park, and then also incorporating on the side of the brook the extension of the bike trail. So
Yes.
the use of that as more of a, more of a softer, greener, pedestrian biking kind of path, I think
Right.
warrants the investment of a landscape buffer.
Well, we're leaving, that's what the conservation is, we have a landscape buffer, one, because we're close at that 40-foot, I think it's about 43 feet, we're fairly close, our property comes to the bankment of the Meadow Brook. So we're pulling our operation back from there. So we're not gonna be doing anything in that might be 20 feet. So if they eventually are putting a bike trail through there, there's gonna be room. I don't know, there's gonna be walking paths.
So you're not aware of the plan? of
Oh,
what's-
I looked at it briefly, but there's a whole green area that the city is looking to make.
Right, the bike trail is on the other side of the brook, I
Oh,
believe.
okay.
Yeah, so this side of the brook is mainly a landscape area to screen what we're gonna be looking at from the bike trail.
No,
Because I'm sure you're gonna be using the bike
that's,
trail.
you'll be looking at green when you look at the back of my client's property, because there'll be
Perfect.
nice
So-
arborvitae's probably growing, and after 10 years, they'll be 15 feet high.
What do you envision as a dimension then from your property line to the Jersey barrier and fence? You're talking about a 10-foot green space there, so that you could
I
plant
think
your
it might-
arborvitae or something like that?
Well, in talking to the conservation last week, there's a lot of real, I don't know what they call them, but invasive weeds that have taken over that whole area. And hopefully the city gets involved with getting rid of all that on their property and then taking the embankment and cleaning up the embankment. But I think we're gonna be back at least 10 feet, maybe more.
10 feet sounds like plenty to do enough of a buffer. Plus you have the riverbank buffer
Right, then
already
you have,
there.
then you have the riverbank.
So
I'm
you
talking
have-
the flat area.
So I think you'd have, probably 30 feet to the, and that would be, I think, a reasonable buffer. So I think if we establish 10
Yeah, that's
feet,
gonna be
maybe-
established on Thursday when the conservation and the engineers go back down there to look at just where we're planning to put the barriers to prevent any possible vehicles from going down that way. And then the other side of the barriers between there and the brook is where the green area will be.
And
So there will be a green area.
We're establishing roughly an 8-foot height that would have the slats in it so that you're walking or driving down the road, basically anything inside would be screened because
You're not
we
gonna
have
see it.
roughly 8 feet to establish that. Great. Any lighting that's gonna be, security lighting that you're gonna be doing in the yard?
There is lighting on the back lot, but anything is focused into the interior
Yep.
of the area just to illuminate the vehicles. There's no lighting that, other than a small light that would be at the front of the building, probably if people are coming up at night in wintertime, but I don't think there'll be any illumination at the front. I don't even think we're planning on having any type of illuminated signage. It's just gonna be lighting in the back lot, so when drivers come in, the lights are on, they know where to bring the vehicles. You need to have some lighting to see what's going on back there, but it's all directed straight down at the site and not. And again, you don't have anything on the left side or the right side. You have Cambridge Street to the left, and you have a building that Scannell Boiler Works owns on the right. Eventually, as you said, it may eventually, 10 or 15 years from now, be a manufacturing facility there. We don't know, but that's a long way off, and
It's the only thing I'd
hopefully
like-
Mr. Stewart will be retired by then.
That's the only thing I'd like to suggest, that any security lighting that we have isn't providing glare to the
No.
other side of the brook. That would be
No.
shielded and directed down. to
Everything's
the-
directed down just down into the site to illuminate the vehicles, and nothing that would go out towards the Lowell connector or out into the brook.
Makes sense. Thank you. I have no further questions.
So I guess the last thing I'll ask is, there'll be no repairing of vehicles or anything like that? This is strictly tow a car or truck, drop it, and have it picked up?
Right, outside is all towing and storage. There's a bay inside where, they may have to fix a wrecker or do something like that, but that's inside, and they're not looking to do vehicle repairs outside or taking cars apart or dismantling cars or things like that. Everything is stored there and then taken off the site.
Okay. Well, again, speaking for myself, I'll be voting in favor. I think the petitioner has demonstrated that the special permit criteria is met as far as the potential use of the site. I didn't hear anything that was in deference to that. I also have a couple of conditions here, if we can just run through those, and Dennis can double-check me on it. I know we talked about the fencing, but I just want to have that as part of the condition, that the fencing will encompass the entire site. We talked about the landscape plan, which designating for the rear of the property that we discussed. And the third item would be based on our decision that it would also incorporate the Conservation Commission also approving. So if you,
That's fine.
I think you know.
That would be
what
nice,
the-
because I think the next meeting after that would be Memorial Day weekend, and then that's going to push it over again. So we're planning on going back to conservation, hopefully on the, I think it's Wednesday the 13th, or might be 14th. And hopefully at that point, you know, we still have the appeal period, I guess, to wait, but, you know, he wants to get moving on this project, and hopefully beginning of the summer, we're up and running.
Yep. So I don't, not to use your petition as an example, but Swathi, if in the event they were denied at conservation, that has no impact if they wanted to come back before us within a certain time period, would it?
No,
Correct.
not
Okay.
to come back.
Yeah, we would definitely come back before the board, but I think there's only a small area that's impacted by conservation, but we're willing to, you know, do what conservation needs to, we understand the concept of down the road, that whole area along the brook has vast potential for green area, for walking.
Sure.
And I think it's gonna be a big improvement. It's an untapped little resource. You don't even know that canal, that waterway is there when you're down that way.
Yep. Any other comments for any other members?
I'd like to add a condition for site lighting, that the site lighting be directed down and shielded from providing any spillage off-site.
Sure. You okay with that, Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, that's fine. Lighting that is directed down into the back lot, that's all we want anyway. I mean, we have no issue in wanting to illuminate Cambridge Street or illuminating the riverbank.
Yep. Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to provide a motion for ZB 2014-017 for a special permit for the applicant Kevin Stewart at 97 Tanner Street with the following conditions. Condition number one, that the site receive a fence around the entire perimeter that will screen visually from the interior, so there'll be vinyl slats. Condition number two is that the rear of the site be landscaped, providing a buffer of 10 feet. And condition number three, that the site lighting provided at the rear of the site be directed down and shielding any spillage off the site.
Okay, could I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Bailey?
Approved with conditions.
Ms. Carino?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. McCarthy?
Approved with conditions?
Mr. Peck?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Perrin?
Approved with conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Curtis, you've been approved with conditions.
Thank you.
Wish you best of luck.
Did I say the Conservation Commission? Condition of receiving conservation approval? We have to have that. Should write it in the meeting minutes. Okay.
You might have said it, but
I might have said it. I know, I don't think I did though.
Okay, next order of business under other business. These are the minutes of January 27th, February 24th, and March 24th. Do I have any comments for any of the board members regarding the minutes? Hearing none.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
On the February 24th minutes,
Yep.
it's minor, but my last name is misspelled several times, so just wanting to correct that. I like my last name.
Okay, I'm sure Joe did the minutes, so I won't blame Swathi for that.
Appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you.
Just trying to help you out, Swathi, you know, but. Swati's a good soldier. She accepts blame. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from any other members? Hearing none, could I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 27th, 2014.
Doing one at a time or all three?
I'm sorry, I have to abstain for 2 of the minutes because I was not present, so I wouldn't be able to approve it.
Okay, so we'll do them one at a time. Okay. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Approved.
Ms. Carino?
Abstain?
Mr. McCarthy?
Approve?
Mr. Peck?
Approve?
Mr. Perrin?
Approve.
Mr. Paglia?
Approved.
Thank you.
Okay, so could I have a motion for the February 24th, 2014 minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 24th, 2014.
And that'll incorporate the changes requested by Ms. Carino. And could I have a second?
Second.
A roll call, please.
Mr. Bailey?
Approve with changes.
Thank you. Ms. Carino?
Approve with changes, thanks.
Mr. McCarthy?
Approve with changes.
Mr. Peck?
Approve with changes.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve with appropriate changes.
Thank you.
Okay. And could I have a motion, please, for the minutes of March 24th, 2014?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 24th, 2014.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Bailey?
Approved.
Ms. Carino?
Abstain?
Mr. McCarthy?
Approve?
Mr. Peck?
Approve?
Mr. Perrin?
Approve.
Mr. Paglia?
Approve.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, any of the board members? Hearing none, our next meeting will be May 12th. Does that sound right? Okay. All right, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I have a second?
Second.
So moved.